I used to think the hardest part of divorce would be the goodbye, the judge's voice, the paperwork, the moment you walk out of a courthouse knowing the life you built is officially over. But no one warned me about the part that comes after, because my marriage ended and the bills didn't. They didn't pause out of respect. They didn't slow down because I was grieving. They didn't disappear just because two people stopped being us. They kept coming, like nothing happened. Quiet, automatic, relentless. And what made it worse was how normal I looked from the outside. I still went to work. I still answered messages. I still smiled when people asked, "How are you holding up?" But inside, I was counting every dollar like it was oxygen. My divorce wasn't explosive. There was no single night where everything shattered in a dramatic fight. It was slower than that. It was distance. It was the way we stopped talking about the future and started talking like roommates. It was the way our conversations became shorter, colder, and filled with delays. Later, next week, after work, when things calmed down. But later never came. The final conversation happened at our kitchen table. Not raised voices, no slammed doors. He just sat there, calm like he had already practiced the words, and said, "I don't think this is working anymore." I stared at him, waiting for some emotion, some hesitation, some sign that he was going to fight for us. But he looked relieved. That was the moment I understood something that still stings when I think about it. He had already left. He just hadn't moved out yet. The divorce process moved fast, faster than my brain could keep up with. Documents, deadlines, emails that felt like they were written by strangers about someone else's life. I kept telling myself one thing. Once the divorce is final, I'll finally breathe. But the breathing didn't come, because the first month after it was official, I woke up one morning, checked my bank account, and saw the damage. Rent cleared, groceries charged, utilities pulled automatically. And after all of it, I had $52 left. $52. I stared at that number for a full minute like I couldn't process it. I wasn't unemployed. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't living some luxury lifestyle. But suddenly, I was supporting a life that used to be held up by two incomes. Now, it was just me. And the bills didn't adjust to match my new reality. They just kept showing up. I started noticing how many things were still tied to the old version of my life. A credit card we used for house stuff. A medical bill from last year that we kept promising we'd pay down soon. A loan payment that hit every month like a quiet threat. Subscriptions neither of us even remembered signing up for. And the worst part? Divorce doesn't just end a marriage, it duplicates expenses. 2 apartments, 2 sets of groceries, 2 utility bills, 2 separate lives that still had one shared financial mess. I cut everything I could. No takeout, no extra spending, no treat yourself. I started buying the cheapest version of everything at the store, even when it tasted like disappointment. I stopped going out, stopped saying yes, stopped living like a person deserved ease. I lived like a person trying not to fall. Then the phone calls started. At first, they were polite, just calling to remind you. Then they got colder, and every time my phone rang, my chest tightened because I couldn't tell if it was someone checking on me or another bill coming to collect. One afternoon, I finally called my ex. I kept my voice calm, but my hands were sweating. "I'm getting notices about the credit card," I said. "We agreed we'd split it." There was a pause. Then he said it like it was obvious. "We're divorced." I blinked. "That doesn't erase the debt." "It's your card too," he replied. "Figure it out." And just like that, the truth landed in my stomach like a stone. He wasn't going to help me. He wasn't going to pay his share just because it was fair. He was going to walk away clean and let me deal with the mess. That night, I sat on my bed with my laptop open, staring at my bills like they were written in another language, and I felt something stronger than fear. I felt anger. Not loud anger, quiet anger. The kind that forms when you realize your marriage didn't just end emotionally, it ended financially. And somehow, I was left holding the weight. But I wasn't going to drown quietly. Not anymore. The next morning, I grabbed a notebook and wrote down everything. Every payment, every due date, every balance. And as the list grew, I felt my breathing sharpen, not with panic, but with determination. Because if my marriage was over, I was done being the person who cleaned up everything alone. And I could feel it coming, a turning point, a moment where survival wasn't just about making it through the month, but taking my life back. The list in my notebook grew faster than I expected. At first, I thought I was just writing down a few things. A couple payments, a couple balances, a couple reminders. But within 20 minutes, the page looked like a crime scene. Rent, utilities, car payment, insurance, phone bill, medical balance, credit card minimums, subscriptions. Then the one that made my stomach turn. A card I barely remembered opening with a balance bigger than I thought we ever had. I stared at the total and whispered, "How did this happen?" And the answer was simple. It happened slowly. It happened through small decisions that didn't seem dangerous at the time. Groceries on the card just this month. A repair we'll pay off next paycheck. A holiday we deserve it after a hard year. It happened while we were still pretending the marriage was fine. And now the pretending was over, but the consequences stayed. I spent that week living like I was walking across thin ice. Every time I opened my bank app, my heart sped up. Every time I checked the mail, I felt dread. And every time my phone buzzed, I held my breath. One morning at work, my screen lit up with a notification. Payment failed. Just 2 words, but they hit harder than any argument ever did. I looked at the alert, confused, then checked my account. The balance was too low. I had miscalculated by $30. $30. That's what my life had come down to. I went to the bathroom, locked the stall, and stared at myself in the mirror. Not crying, not falling apart, just shocked. Because I was functioning on the outside, but inside I felt like my entire life was held together by one thread. That afternoon, I called the billing department and asked if they could push the payment date. The woman on the phone was polite, but not warm. She offered me a solution that didn't feel like help. A late fee, an adjusted payment plan, more months of debt. I hung up and realized something terrifying. This wasn't going to fix itself. I couldn't get through this the way I got through heartbreak, because money doesn't care if you're hurting. Money doesn't care if you're exhausted. It demands an answer. That night, I did the thing most people do when they're scared. I searched online. How to pay off debt after divorce. What to do if you can't pay your bills. How to rebuild credit fast. And the more I read, the more I felt worse. Because every article assumed you had something I didn't have. Extra cash, family support, a cushion, a plan. All I had was a paycheck that didn't stretch far enough. Then my credit card company called. I didn't pick up. They left a voicemail. The next day, they called again, then again. And suddenly, my phone started feeling like a threat. On Friday evening, I sat in my car outside my apartment building for almost 10 minutes. Not because I didn't want to go inside, because I didn't want to look at my life. I didn't want to walk into a place that felt smaller than the life I used to live. I didn't want to unpack the reality that the marriage wasn't gone, the stability was gone too. When I finally went inside, I dropped my keys on the counter, sat on the floor, and cried for the first time in days. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that felt like my body letting go of control. And while I was sitting there, my phone buzzed again. Another email, another bill, another reminder that the world didn't care that my heart was broken. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and opened my notebook again. I knew I had to make decisions. Real ones, not emotional ones. The kind of decisions that don't feel good but keep you alive. The first decision was humiliating. I called my landlord and asked about flexibility. Not forgiveness, just time. He said he'd give me a short extension once. One time. And I thanked him like he had saved my life. The second decision was harder. I called the credit card company and asked about hardship options. They offered a lower payment plan, but it would take longer to pay off. It felt like picking between drowning and slowly sinking, but I accepted it because I needed air. Then came the decision I didn't want to face, the one that forced me to admit something I was avoiding. I needed more money. And that meant one of two things: more hours or a second job. I hated that idea because it felt unfair. I wasn't the one who walked away clean. I wasn't the one who said, "Figure it out," and disappeared. But I was the one holding the bills. So fairness didn't matter. Survival did. I started applying for weekend shifts, retail, reception work, anything. I told myself it would be temporary, just until I got stable again. But deep down, I knew the truth. Temporary has a way of becoming your new normal when you don't have support. A week later, the first real punch landed. I opened my credit monitoring app and saw it. My credit score dropped. Not by 10 points, by a lot. Because of missed payments and high utilization. Because money doesn't just take your money, it takes your future. It takes your ability to move, to rent, to buy, to start over clean. I stared at the number and felt a cold wave hit my chest. This wasn't just stress. This was damage. Real damage. And suddenly, I understood what was at stake. This wasn't about struggling for a month or two. This was about whether I would spend years rebuilding or years falling deeper. That night, I made a promise to myself. No more avoiding it, no more hoping it gets better. I was going to face every bill, every balance, every mistake, and take control. Because my marriage ended, but my life didn't. And if no one was coming to rescue me, I was going to rescue myself. Once my credit score dropped, I stopped pretending this was just a rough patch. A rough patch is a bad week. This was a real shift in my life. This was the kind of financial damage that follows you into every decision: where you live, what you drive, whether a landlord trusts you, whether you qualify for anything better than survival. And the scariest part was realizing it wasn't only the bills. It was the power behind them. I wasn't just stressed, I was exposed. I spent that weekend doing what I should have done months earlier. I faced every number like it was a mirror. I pulled all 3 credit reports. I made a spreadsheet. I listed everything: balance, interest rate, minimum payment, due date. And for the first time since the divorce, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a woman holding proof. Because when you can see the damage clearly, you can finally stop guessing where the pain is coming from. That spreadsheet became my reality check. It also became my plan. The first thing I did was cut the bleeding. I canceled subscriptions I didn't need. I called the phone company and downgraded my plan. I turned off every automatic purchase I could. Not because I wanted a minimalist lifestyle, because I needed control. Then I called the companies I was avoiding, one by one. The calls were humiliating at first. I hate sounding desperate. I hate admitting I'm behind. But I realized something important. Being ashamed won't lower my balance, so I stopped trying to sound fine. I started sounding honest. I'm going through a divorce, I told them. I need a hardship plan. Some people were cold. Some were surprisingly kind. One representative talked to me like a human and said, "Okay, we can work with this." That sentence, "we can work with this," felt like someone handing me a rope when I'd been slipping underwater. But not every call was that easy. One company offered me a plan that barely changed anything. Another warned me that if I missed one more payment, it would be reported again. And each time, I felt the same thought rising in my chest. This is my life now. Then I realized I had to do something harder than budgeting. I had to confront my ex again, not emotionally, strategically. Because even though we were divorced, some accounts were still tied to both of us, and if he refused to pay, I needed proof that I tried. I needed documentation, not arguments. So I texted him, short, simple, direct. "Can you confirm you're not paying your share of the joint debt we agreed to split?" He didn't answer for hours. Then, finally, he replied with one sentence, "Not my problem." I stared at the screen like it was a joke, because it wasn't just cruel, it was stupid. He was talking like the debt wouldn't catch up to him, like my suffering was invisible. But my lawyer had warned me, some people only understand consequences. They don't understand empathy. So I screenshotted the message, saved it, and added it to a folder labeled Documents. Not for revenge, for protection. That was my turning point, the moment I stopped asking for kindness and started building safety. The next week, I got a second job, 2 nights a week and 1 weekend shift. The pay wasn't amazing, but it created breathing room, and something surprising happened. The more I worked, the less I felt broken. Not because working more is some inspirational solution, because action gave me back a sense of control. I wasn't waiting for him to do the right thing. I wasn't waiting for life to calm down. I was moving. Every paycheck I split into categories: rent, essentials, minimums. Then one extra payment, even if it was small. $20 more on one card, $50 more on another. It wasn't impressive, but it was forward, and forward is how you survive. Then I made another hard decision. I stopped trying to keep up appearances. No more pretending I was okay financially just to look strong. I told 2 trusted people the truth. Not everyone, just the right ones. My sister and my closest friend. And the relief I felt after admitting it was shocking, because carrying debt in silence makes you feel like it's your identity. But debt isn't identity, it's just a situation. A painful one, a stressful one, but it doesn't get to define who you are. One night, my friend came over and we ate cheap takeout on the floor of my apartment because I didn't have a dining table yet. She looked around and asked quietly, "Do you miss him?" I thought about it. I thought about the version of him I married, the version I believed in, and then I thought about the text that said, "Not my problem," and I answered honestly, I miss what I thought we had, but I don't miss being left alone in it. That was the moment I realized the bills weren't the only aftermath. The emotional betrayal was still there too. Because money is tied to trust, and when someone walks away from responsibility, they're not just abandoning debt, they're abandoning you. But here's what divorce didn't do. It didn't destroy me, it didn't end me, it didn't erase my ability to rebuild. Every week, I watched my spreadsheet slowly change. Balances dropped by small amounts. Late fees stopped stacking. My credit score started stabilizing. Not skyrocketing, not instantly, but stabilizing. And stability felt like hope. The biggest change wasn't even financial. It was internal. I stopped feeling like I needed his cooperation to survive. I stopped thinking the story ended because he left. Because my story didn't end. It just shifted. And the more I rebuilt, the more I realized something powerful. My marriage ended, but I was still here, and the bills were still here too. So I was going to do what I always did. I was going to handle what life handed me, and I was going to do it with my name on the victory this time. The strangest part about rebuilding after divorce is that progress doesn't feel like a miracle. It feels boring. It feels like receipts, like spreadsheets, like making the same responsible choice over and over again. No one claps for you when you pay off a balance instead of buying something you want. No one celebrates when you skip a night out because you're trying to get your life back under control. But slowly, quietly, those boring choices start turning into freedom. After a few months, I stopped waking up with dread in my chest. Not because everything was perfect, because I had a plan. Every paycheck followed the same rules. Rent first, essentials next, minimum payments locked in, then one extra payment no matter how small. Even if it was $20, even if it was just a little more than the minimum, it wasn't about the amount. It was about proving to myself that I wasn't trapped, that I wasn't stuck in the damage forever. The second job became part of my life for a while. I didn't love it. Some nights I came home exhausted, took my shoes off, and just sat in silence because my body felt heavy. But the silence wasn't the same as before. Before, silence felt like abandonment. Now, it felt like discipline. It felt like momentum. One night, I checked my credit score again. I expected it to stay the same. I was used to disappointment. But the number had climbed. Not by 100 points, not by some dramatic leap, just enough to make me stare at it twice. I smiled, and it surprised me, because it wasn't a win anyone could see from the outside, but inside, it was everything. It meant the damage was healing. It meant the future wasn't closed. It meant I could still rebuild something new. Then something else happened that I didn't expect. The phone calls slowed down. The urgent emails became less frequent. The panic in my chest stopped showing up every time I opened my bank app. It wasn't because the bills disappeared. They didn't. But they stopped controlling me. And I realized that was the true turning point. Not when my marriage ended, not when the divorce papers were signed. The real turning point was when I stopped living like my life was collapsing and started living like my life was mine again. The final step was the hardest one emotionally. I had to let go of the belief that my ex would ever make it right. Because deep down, a part of me still wanted him to feel guilty, to apologize, to wake up one day and say, "You didn't deserve that." But waiting for that kind of closure is a trap. Some people don't return to fix what they broke. They just move on. And if you keep waiting for them to care, you stay stuck in the same pain. So I stopped expecting him to help. I stopped checking my phone for accountability that was never coming. I stopped reopening the wound just to prove it was real. And that's when the healing sped up. Not because the bills were gone, because my energy wasn't leaking anymore. It was being invested in my future. I started doing small things that felt like life again. Cooking meals that didn't feel like survival food. Going for walks in the evening just to breathe. Buying one small thing for my apartment, not because it was necessary, because I wanted to create comfort again. And in those moments, I realized how much divorce takes from you that has nothing to do with love. It takes your confidence. It takes your sense of safety. It takes your ability to trust your own decisions. But it also gives you something, if you let it. It gives you truth. Truth about who someone really is when things get hard. Truth about what you ignored to keep peace. Truth about what you need to protect moving forward. I used to think being easy to be with was the same as being loved. I used to think avoiding conflict was maturity. I used to think that if I stayed loyal enough, I would be protected. But after divorce, after the bills, after the stress, after the betrayal, I learned a different definition of strength. Strength is reading the paperwork. Strength is asking questions. Strength is knowing what's in your name. Strength is building a life that doesn't collapse if someone walks away. Because the truth is, marriage can end, but responsibility doesn't. Debt doesn't. Consequences don't. And if you're watching this story and you're in the middle of something similar, if you're separated, divorced, or quietly drowning in bills that don't match your new life, please hear me. You're not failing. You're rebuilding. One payment at a time, one boundary at a time, one decision at a time. And yes, it's exhausting. But it's temporary, because a plan turns panic into progress, and progress turns survival into freedom. My marriage ended, but the bills didn't. And somehow, I survived both. Not because someone saved me, because I finally stopped waiting to be rescued and started rescuing myself. Divorce ends a relationship, but sometimes the bills stay behind. If this story hit your heart, comment, "I'm rebuilding." Have you ever had to start over financially after a breakup or divorce? Like, subscribe, share. Someone out there needs this story today.